Welcome to Mimi Stories 256. Please like, subscribe, and comment. A like means support. Let's continue with our next chapter of The Price of Her Belonging. Edith had fought against all odds to make her life better. School was her escape. Though it wasn't the best school, Edith still found joy in learning and excelled, despite the odds stacked against her. Unfortunately, circumstances forced her to leave before graduation, yet her sharp mind and diligent nature remained. She had always been good at what she did, a quality that set her apart, even in the hardest of times. In her 20s, Edith secured a job at a modest hotel. It wasn't glamorous, but it was a start. She was beautiful, though not in an ostentatious way. Her beauty was simple and understated, a quiet charm that turned heads wherever she went. Guests often remarked on her kind smile and composed demeanor, though Edith herself remained grounded. She wasn't chasing admiration. She was simply doing her best to build the life she'd always dreamed of, piece by piece. Everything seemed to be falling into place until that fateful night. The hotel bustled with activity as a group of wealthy young men arrived, their laughter loud and carefree. Word spread quickly among the staff. It was a bachelor's party, a celebration for one of the men who would be marrying soon. Edith stood behind the reception desk, her hands folded neatly in front of her as she watched the chaos unfold. Each of you is assigned to one of the guests. The manager barked at the female staff, his tone brisk. Do whatever they need, no exceptions. Edith shifted uncomfortably, feeling the weight of his words. She knew her boundaries, and she wasn't about to cross them. But as the night wore on, her unease grew. The men drank heavily, their behavior becoming increasingly unruly. She stuck to her assigned guest, a polite and reserved young man who seemed uninterested in the rowdy antics of his friends. As the wrap-up time was approaching, Edith moved quietly through the bustling hotel lobby, her apron tied neatly around her waist and her hair pinned back in a modest style. The chatter of wealthy guests echoed around her, the air thick with the smell of expensive cologne and freshly polished wood. She glanced at the clock above the reception desk, almost midnight. She could finally take a breath. Most of the rich young men who had come to their bachelor's party were either passed out drunk in their rooms or had stumbled off to bed. She turned to another staff member, a girl named Mina, who was stacking glasses behind the bar. Well, that was something, Edith said, her voice low with exhaustion. At least it's over now. I don't think I've ever seen so much champagne in one night. Mina chuckled softly, shaking her head. You're telling me. They were so rowdy, but at least they didn't ask for more drinks. I just want to get home and sleep. Edith smiled faintly, nodding in agreement. She reached for her apron strings, ready to call it a night, when the sharp voice of their manager cut through the quiet. Edith! He barked, storming across the room toward her. She stiffened, her hands freezing mid-motion. Yes, sir? She said cautiously, turning to face him. The manager entered the room with an air of casual arrogance, his chubby frame strained against the fabric of his tailored shirt, the buttons barely holding their ground. His sly grin curled across his round face, a look that was all too familiar to Edith. She could sense it from the moment he stepped into the room, the way his narrow eyes gleamed with mischief, how his bushy brows arched slightly as if plotting something. It was that particular expression he always wore when he intended to make things difficult for her. He had always carried himself with a false sense of authority that masked his insecurities. He'd treat her kindly one moment, offering compliments that veiled his true intentions, only to lash out the next, his bad temper boiling to the surface. His moods were as unpredictable as the weather, making Edith wary every time they met. Today was no exception. There was no mistaking his demeanor. He seemed determined once again to put her in a position where she'd need to yield, or so he hoped. He leaned forward now, his thick arms resting on the desk as he clasped his hands together. His voice, low and calculated, carried a subtle edge as he greeted her with false politeness. Edith, good to see you. I hope you're ready to tackle some new challenges today. His smile didn't reach his eyes. Edith gave him a polite nod, her own demeanor measured. She had long learned how to navigate his games. He had a tendency to keep certain staff members close, especially those he had an interest in. To him, his employees weren't just workers. They were pawns, assets that he could control and manipulate. His favoritism was transparent to everyone in the office, and it often led to an uncomfortable environment. Edith, however, had always managed to hold her ground. She had turned him down time and again, refusing his advances in a way that left no room for misinterpretation. Her resistance had bruised his ego, and now he seemed intent on making her pay for it in small, petty ways, whether it was assigning her extra tasks at the last minute or criticizing her efforts publicly. He sought to maintain power over her, but Edith wouldn't yield. The manager's round frame shifted slightly as he stood, his presence looming despite his lack of physical intimidation. His chubbiness didn't detract from the forceful way he carried himself. "Edith," he said, his tone laced with mock warmth, "I have something fitting for you to do." His words hung in the air, the underlying meaning clear to both of them. He held up a key, dangling it between his fingers. "One of the guests wasn't feeling well. Room 302, go check on him." Edith frowned, her stomach twisting uneasily. "Room 302? She repeated. "That's not my guest. I wasn't assigned to him tonight." The manager's face darkened, his lips curling into a thin, mocking smile. "And? You think this is up for discussion?" "But sir," she said, her voice trembling slightly, "I've been working the entire evening. That's not my responsibility. Maybe Mina—" The manager cut her off with a dismissive wave of his hand. "Mina has done more than enough tonight, unlike you who's been slow and sloppy. Or are you saying you're too good for this job now?" Edith's cheeks flushed with anger, but she swallowed her pride. She couldn't afford to lose this job. The weight of her situation, her rent, her bills, her future, pressed down on her shoulders. She sighed, reaching out reluctantly to take the key from his hand. "That's more like it," the manager sneered. "And don't take all night. Some of us actually work around here." As he walked away, Edith stood frozen for a moment, clutching the key in her hand. Mina glanced at her from behind the bar, concern flickering in her eyes. "You okay?" she asked quietly. Edith forced a weak smile. "Yeah, I'll be fine. Just one more job, right?" Mina didn't look convinced, but said nothing as Edith turned and made her way down the dimly lit hallway. Her footsteps echoed off the marble floors, each one heavier than the last. Her fingers tightened around the key as a sense of unease crept over her. Something about this didn't feel right, but what choice did she have? When she reached room 302, she hesitated outside the door. The number gleamed in gold against the dark wood, the key shaking slightly in her trembling hand. She took a deep breath, willing herself to stay calm, and slid the key into the lock. As her trembling hand slid the key into the lock, a knot tightened in her stomach. Something felt wrong, but she pushed the feeling aside. The door creaked open, revealing the groom sprawled on a lavish couch, his tie undone and shirt rumpled. His glazed eyes turned to her, and a slow, smug smile spread across his face. "Ah, finally," he slurred, sitting up unsteadily. "Come on in, sweetheart. Don't be shy." Edith froze. "What do you think Edith will do next?" Just a favor to ask. "Please like. A comment gives me more energy to continue posting. And subscribe. Tell me whatever you think. It's an episode-based story, so tell me what you want to come next."